What's up, my little firecrackers? Blazing what is, blazing away into another video. You already know what this is, but first, news. While writing this, I realized I left Ochako and Momo out of the last one, but they're not really combat oriented. They will be later on, after training, 2-year time skip. They'll be more combat assertive. So, sorry about that, but still take more of a center stage after the 2-year time skip. Also, just to get this out there, because I think this is like the most watched series on my channel. I think at the very least it's the one I have the most fun making. But I am not currently accepting any what if ideas. I have at least a dozen what if ideas going on inside my head right now, and I won't be accepting any of the ones that you give me because I will most definitely forget where to find said suggestion, and then I can't shout you out, and then I don't want to do the what if because then I feel like I'm just stealing the idea, and I don't like that feeling. So I'm not currently accepting what if ideas off of YouTube. So if you do want a shout out and you don't want to forget what your idea is or whatever your reasonings for telling me now instead of later is, make sure I have a Discord. It will be linked in the description. It's mainly just for you to suggest ideas for what ifs you want me to do in the future, or ideas to add into what ifs that I am currently doing. Not what ifs that are, already finished, like what if Deku was a cyborg? Or including any other what if. Once I finished it, please don't go telling me ideas or things that I should have done in a certain series. One last thing. I started this script on page 18 of a Google Doc, and when I finished it, I ended up on page 34, 35-ish. So I believe this is the biggest update to the series so far, so I really hope you enjoy it. I might split this in half just because it's so freaking long. Hope you enjoy. This is What If Deku Was in One Piece, Part 7. Now, during the 2 months, Usopp and May created a gun that had the power of the dials behind it. Bakugo ended up taking the spear that Izuku got from the former priest in Skypiea. Bakugo is also learning how to use a sword from Izuku, as Zoro is not as skilled as Izuku with a singular sword. So if Izuku were to fight Zoro and they were both to only use one sword, Izuku would win. And now for what you've been waiting for. For those who have no idea what happened right after the Foxy Pirates. Let's get into that. A small boy holding a seahorse-looking creature stood underwater with some sort of air bubble on his head that allowed the boy to breathe. The seahorse sucked in this blue misty substance. When everyone woke up, well, the ones that went to sleep anyway, they couldn't remember the rest of the crew at all and tried to leave. Zoro could not remember how to use Haki, so when Izuku fought him with his own Haki-infused blade, Zoro was defeated by a massive margin. Usopp couldn't find his slingshot and only found his gun, which he could not remember how to use, as he only used a slingshot, or to his memory, he had only ever used a slingshot. Kirishima had to detain him while Nami found the treasure room as Robin bound her with her limbs made by the... Is it Plume Plume or Bloom Bloom? Is it bee or whatever? You know what I'm talking about. Using her devil fruit. So she couldn't run off. As Rumi, Ryuko, and Bakugo tied all of them up, as Bakugo says, I told all of you that you should trust our captain's instincts. And they should have. Izuku's gut is never wrong. The three are screaming, saying to let them go, while Usopp is trying to put on a brave front, even though he is scared out of his mind. So what is the last thing all of you remember? Izuku asked, as none of them seemed to know who he was, or who anyone else on the boat was. I don't have to answer that, Nami responded with venom in her words. I don't know how to do a girl's voice. You're going to have to stay with me here, okay? Mizuku sighed. This wasn't going to get him anywhere. Let's go to that island. Hopefully we can find out what is happening there. They all set out for the island, except for Bakugo, Kirishima, Kyoka, Mei, Momo, Ochako, and Rumi, who watched over the three that had lost their memories, so they wouldn't escape. Not that they had much of a chance. When the three got to the island, they found that everyone there had their memories stolen. As they continued, they found a boy carrying a seahorse in the forest. Izuku's gut told him that the seahorse-looking creature that held his friends is what held their friends' memories. Izuku transformed into his hybrid form and attacked the thing. The first chance he got, he ripped it from the boy's hand and pinned it to the ground, growling at it while it tried to speak, and Chopper translated. The speech amounted to him wanting to become a celestial dragon, blah blah blah. Canon stuff. Izuku said that he would let him go after he forced him to release the memories of everyone in town, but if he tried to steal memories again, he would have to deal with him. Izuku let go, but the seahorse immediately tried to steal their memories, as Izuku just said, I warned you, as he just cut the thing down with his claws. With this, he transformed back, and they all moved on to the next island. On their way, they encountered a man who both Izuku and Robin had met before, Admiral Aokiji. Izuku knew him because he had come to visit Garp several times while Garp had been training him. Aokiji, despite his normally cold persona, happened to be a really nice person. Izuku knew he was not like most Marines, but he also knew that Aokiji would not hesitate to cut him down now that he was a pirate. His entire crew knew who all the admirals were, so they all knew who this was as well, but not on a personal level. That was when he spoke. It's been a while, Izuku. I have to admit that when I found out that you became a pirate, I was quite disappointed. Izuku transformed as he believed he would need to in this case. Okay, should be fine. I hope my phone doesn't die while I'm recording this. In case Aokiji decided to fight him. Everyone in his crew, except for Bakugo, said in unison, "You know an admiral?" That was when Aokiji ignored them, saying, "You're going to be such a great Marine. What happened to change you into this pirate. Again, everyone except for Baku stood in shock. None of them knew about how he had been trained to be a Marine. "Why didn't you tell us?" his crew shouted in unison. "The past is in the past, and we will leave it there," he shouted in anger as his eyes changed from the normal emerald color to a red color, almost as a sign of how angry he was. They could all tell that he didn't like his past, as evident by him never talking about it, and his hatred towards the Navy, while formally trying to become one, left them to believe that he hated the fact that he had ever wanted to become a Marine. Then Izuku said to Aokiji, "I will be my own person. I will not be held down by the ideals of the Navy, who should be protecting people, but more often than not, does the opposite." As he ran at Aokiji with armament hockey covering his fists as he told the rest of his crew to leave, as they were not ready to fight an admiral yet. This angered Rumi, as well as Bakugo, but what made them angrier was that he was right. They were strong, but not strong enough. Rumi specifically had no idea what hockey was before she had even met Izuku. Rumi did not know how to use armament hockey properly just yet. However, observation hockey came naturally once she learned what it was. While she slowly but surely learned how to use armament hockey. She did learn armament hockey a lot quicker than most, as she was a more combative type of person. Now, that being said, the crew left back to the ship as a captain's orders were final. Izuku punched Aokiji, but not without the risk of his hand freezing slightly. It was now covered in a slight frost, but his woven form started to flame up and melt the frost. Izuku noted this and became slightly confused, but he decided it would be best left for another time. Right now he needed to focus on the fight at hand. This fight was anything but equal. Aokiji had the upper hand the entire time, even when Izuku managed to hit him, which wasn't often because of how advanced Aokiji's observation hockey was. Aokiji had just focused his armament hockey into one place to better defend against the blow. This battle only served to show Izuku just how much farther both his crew and himself had to go before they could consider themselves truly the best in the world. Aokiji had hit him multiple times, freezing him more and more. But every once in a while, flames would just randomly spark from his body, almost as if he was trying to transform into his fire god form without a rumble ball. And it was working, even if only slightly. By the end of it, Izuku was panting and Aokiji had barely broken a sweat as he said, "As a favor to your grandfather and to an old friend, I'm not going to end you here. Robin seems to be fond of you, so I want to see if you can save her from her past. Until next time, Izuku. Until next time." He then got on a bike that was inflated and able to float on water, and headed back to a marine base. Izuku, still slightly frozen, but nothing too major, made his way back to the ship, with slight frost covering his body. "Hey Chopper, can you run me a hot shower, please?" Izuku said as soon as he got back to the ship. He was extremely cold. Even with how much fur he had in this form, it's still very cold. Chopper, as well as the rest of the crew, wore expressions of complete surprise as Izuku looked defeated. He looked like Aokiji had just let him go. Oh, they could tell all of that just from the look of both anger and defeat on his face. Despite how kind his voice sounded, he was definitely angry at himself for not being stronger. Izuku took a nice hot shower as Rumi spied on him while training with her observation hockey. Not physically, but with observation hockey. Gotta be specific. They continue on their way to the next island until they see a frog swimming like a human. Ooh, okay, I'll watch that later. Izuku was extremely interested and decided to follow it when they came across these weird tracks in the water. Izuku tells everyone to stop the ship, which they do, and no sooner than they did than a train came running down the tracks and laid beneath the surface of the ocean, which the frog attacked the train only to be knocked off the tracks completely. They then talked to a young girl and an old drunk woman who told them that their log pose was pointing towards Water 7, and how it is the best place in the world in terms of shipwrights. She also gave them a map of Water 7 that would also serve as an introduction letter to the supposed best shipwright in Water 7, Iceberg. They said their goodbyes as the crew set off for Water 7. On the way there, Izuku gathers the entirety of the crew for a talk about what they are going to do once they got to Water 7. Look, everyone, when we get to Water 7, we're getting a new ship. Usopp protested, saying, "What are you talking about? We can't let the Mary go. She's a part of this crew too, you know." Chopper followed him by saying, "Yeah, she's an important part of this crew." To this, May spoke up. "You can't sail the Grand Line in a ship that's on her last legs." Her voice was sad, which was a stark contrast to her normal upbeat tone. "Well, that's why we're going to fix her," Usopp said. And before Izuku screamed, saying, "She can't be fixed!" Which everyone stood there, silent at their captain's words before he continued. "Look, a while ago I got a really bad feeling that the Mary was damaged beyond repair. So I went to check it out and found that the keel was broken. Now, before anyone says anything, to those of you who don't know what a keel is the backbone of a ship, what the entire ship is made off of. If the keel breaks, it can't be replaced. It is impossible. Trying to do so would only result in a ship that would feel completely different to the original. It would be a totally different ship, so if the keel is damaged, we have no choice but to get a new ship." Everyone looked down in sadness, other than, the obvious ones who didn't really express negative emotions other than anger. I'd have to agree, that is very loud. I have no idea what's going on in the background. I'm sorry, guys. Anyway, once they got to Water 7, the kind people there gave them some helpful directions. They ended up docking on a small piece of land at the edge of town. Then Usopp, Izuku, and Nami took all of the gold to the bank via bulls, which are fish that, more often than not, swim with their heads above the water. They get 3 and eventually get to a bank where they exchange the gold for berries. They had to go to several to get all their money, and some tried to rip them off, and as a result got a face-to-face with Izuku in his hybrid form, telling them not to rip off a pirate with a bounty of 400 million. In the end, they had a grand total of 30 billion berries, which was carried in 3 large suitcases they had to roll around, even though Izuku could have just carried them all at once. Yeah, he's a pretty strong man. Yank. While Izuku, Usopp, and Nami went to cash in the treasure, Robin, Chopper, and Vivi went shopping. While they were shopping, someone walked past Robin saying, CP9, which seemed to scare Robin as she stopped walking, and when Chopper and Vivi looked back at her, she was gone. While that happened, back on the ship, Zoro was sleeping on the deck while everyone else attended to gather up their things as they wanted to be ready to move everything onto the new ship as soon as they got it. When Zoro was attacked by a bunch of idiots calling themselves the Frankie family, Zoro easily outpowered all of them, since none of them even knew what hockey was, let alone how to use it. They could not tell why Zoro was so powerful, and fled before the fight could even really begin. Back with Izuku, he meets up with Iceberg and asks if he can make them a ship, when he sees a group of people dressed extremely weirdly dragging off Usopp as well as their cash. Excuse me, Iceberg, but I have something I need to take care of, Izuku said as he activated his observation hockey as he chases after them. But as he activated it, he felt that the 3 people next to Iceberg, those people being his secretary and 2 shipwrights, one having a bird on his shoulder, which he used to talk, while the other had a long nose that had a rectangular shape, who all had no form of emotion, almost like an assassin. He could sense no emotion coming off of them at all. This made Izuku think that they might eventually betray Iceberg, but he didn't have time to think about that. He needed to go after his friend. And he did not want to scare anyone or draw attention to himself since he had extremely high bounty, so he followed from the shadows. The strangely dressed group brought Usopp all the way back to their base of operations. Izuku forced his way inside to see a large number of people in the same strange clothes, watching while Usopp tried to talk to their leader, asking for the money back. Izuku walks forward and puts his hand on Usopp's shoulder with an extremely calm look on his face, however. This only made Usopp even more afraid, as Izuku was the scariest when he was calm. Or rather, when his anger is calm. Because if you haven't seen someone who's calm when they're angry, that shit's fucking scary, bro. At least in anime it is. Anyway, moving on. Who are you, and why do you think that you can attack someone from my crew? Izuku said calmly. Who am I? I'm Frankie. The man who wore only a Speedo as well as an unbuttoned Hawaiian shirt. As for why I attacked your friend here, I didn't attack him. You have my apologies on behalf of my family. They didn't know what they were really getting into. But they did it because we need the money to buy a special type of wood that is almost completely indestructible to make the best ship in the world that will sail any sea no matter how treacherous, the Speedo man said, puffing out his chest. Izuku's eyes went from a calm anger to having stars bright enough to illuminate the entire room. He calmed himself before speaking again. I can forgive you, since he's uninjured. If you give me that ship once you are finished making it. If not, I can't guarantee that I will be able to keep my anger in check, he said as his eyes turned blood red, showing he meant business. Izuku wasn't fazed by his threat, but Izuku looked like he would actually be able to take his ship to the end of the Grand Line and achieve Frankie's dream. Okay then. I'll make this ship for you, but I need... Frankie could not finish before Izuku placed another 10 billion berries, his own suitcase, next to the other one. And so he could get even more of the wood and make an even bigger ship. I have a big crew and I plan on making it even bigger, like a lot bigger. I'm gonna need an area big enough for someone twice the size of a giant to curl up and sleep. I'm talking really big. So, do you think this much money will be enough to get for all the wood you need for that big of a job? He said while pointing at the 2 cases that amounted to 20 billion berries. That's a big order. But I think this will be enough even for a ship that size. Yes. You have my guarantee that it will be the best ship on the seas, Frankie said with pride eminent in his voice. It better be, Izuku said jokingly. After this, they left and got the rest of the crew and got some hotel rooms. A day had passed, and Nami came back the next morning with news that Iceberg had been shot. Izuku decides to go and check on his condition. He told the rest of his crew to go and search for Robin and to come back up on the roof of the hotel they were staying at and to meet back up there. Izuku then went to visit Iceberg, but when he got there, all of Galley Law Company already believed that he was the one responsible. Why the hell do you think I'm the one responsible? Izuku asked with anger rising in his voice. Robin, a member of your crew, was there when it all happened. Iceberg said it himself. Polly shouted at Izuku as he continuously dodged all of their attacks like it was nothing. Well, for your information, I have not seen Robin since we got on the island yesterday morning, Izuku said, angry that he would accuse Robin of something like that. But he had no idea what Robin was doing, so he couldn't deny that it was a possibility. Well, you could have easily told her to go do the deed and not have any contact with you so that you could have an excuse, Kaku retorted while trying to kick him, but Izuku easily dodged him using shave. Izuku noticed a look of surprise on his face that told him the man knew what the 6 powers were, which meant he worked for the Marines, not Galley Law, as it was techniques that only the Marines knew how to use. Which meant his theory that those 3 from earlier were traitors was correct. However, he could already see how poorly everyone was treating him since they thought he tried to kill Iceberg, so if he actually killed these people without any real evidence, things would only get worse. He transformed and left before anyone could even see the direction he left in. By the time he met up with his crew, the entirety of Water 7 was against them. What the hell happened at Galley Law, Izuku? Katsuki said in his normal angry tone. And he didn't like being labeled a bad guy, especially when their crew helped the innocent and punished the truly bad people. Calm down, Katsu bro. I'm sure Izuku has a good reason. Kirishima said with one hand on Katsuki's shoulder, which to everyone except for Izuku, Mei, and Kyoka were surprised by. If it isn't clear, I'm doing a Kiribaku thing here, so there are only 2 gay ships in My Hero Academia that I support, and one is Kiribaku. And the other doesn't involve Bakugo or Deku, so stop. Don't even go there. That I'm not gonna go on a rant as to why I need to say that. I could do that later. But it does not involve either of them. Anyway, moving on. Look, everyone. I found out where Robin is. My gut is telling me that she's with the group. Cyberpole. And if I hazard a guess, I'd have to say CP9 or Cyberpole 9. Something like a ghost story that goes around the Marines and pirates alike. But I believe it to be true. Now, for those of you who don't know, Cyberpole is actually how do I put this? There are different groups labeled from 0 to 9, though most think 9 is a myth. All of those groups specialize in the 6 powers in which I have taught all of you. So, and from what I saw earlier today, I believe it is them. CP9 is the most discreet, which is why I believe it is them who did it. I also believe that they are working as spies within Galley Law, and are trying to pin Iceberg's death on us, which is why they somehow threatened Robin into helping them. And for what they will, and for that, they will know hell. No one, and I mean no one, messes with my crew and gets away with it. Am I understood? Everyone shook their heads in acknowledgement. His calm anchor was terrifying. Bakugo was ready for the fight. Zoro and Rumi were ready to test their strength. And the others wanted their friend back. Good. Now that we are on the same page, Usopp, Ochako, Momo, Vivi, Mei, Nami, and Chopper, take all of our stuff and go to the Frankie family house and make contact with Frankie and make sure everything is alright. From what the rest of you have told me, a terrible storm called Aqua Laguna is coming. So make sure has a safe place to hide away from the storm, which I'm sure he does. Everyone else that is equipped for stealth comes with me. Zuko walked out as he finished. Usopp took everyone that was not equipped for stealth, or the people I mentioned earlier, and or combat, to haul all of their stuff, including the Mary, to the Frankie house, where Frankie put their ship in the same place he did in canon as they stayed there, to stay safe from the storm. This means that Izuku took Katsuki, Kirishima, Zoro, Kyoka, Tsuyu, Itsuga, Setsuna, Rumi, Ryuko, and Sanji. They all went their separate ways so that they couldn't get caught all together in a large group. This was going to be a stealth mission, not an all-out brawl. Robin ended up talking with Sanji, saying that she was indeed responsible and she wanted to part ways as she walked away, as she seemed to disappear into nowhere. But before that, Sanji got a word in. You know Izuku is going to kill whoever is forcing you to do this, Sanji said, but he was unable to say anything else before she was gone. They met back up a few minutes later outside of Galley Law Company. The main people of Galley Law, Peeply, I think that's how you pronounce his name, Lulu, Tilestone, Rob Lucy, Lucci, and Kaku all waited outside of Iceberg's room. Polly gets called into the room by Khalifa. They had the same conversation as in canon. While outside the room, the foremen of Galley Law were talking about the crew. Before I continue, I am giving other people in the crew bounties because I would think that with all the time skips, they have gotten known as well. Rablushi spoke up saying, there are 19 people that are a part of the Seawolf Pirates in total. However, there are only 12 that we really need to worry about. And those would be Katsuki Bakugo, bounty 200 million, who has a mastery over his explosive devil fruit that makes his entire body explosive, and only seems to be getting stronger. Zoro, bounty 175 million, who's an extremely powerful swordsman who is able to survive a sword fight with Hawkeye Mihawk. Kyokajiro, bounty 10 million, has been seen to be a master of strategy that can predict her opponent's every move. Tsuyu Asui, bounty 45 million. She should not be underestimated. Although her attitude is usually calm, she doesn't hesitate to kill Marines when agitated. She also has been known to be stronger than a Marine Rear Admiral. Ejiro Kirishima, bounty 100 million. His body is extremely durable and no one knows why, but he can hit just as hard. Itsuka Kendo, bounty 115 million. She can become larger than a giant and her attacks hit harder too. Setsuna Tokage, bounty 100 million. She can split herself and create clones via the different pieces she splits herself into. Rumi Usagiyama, bounty 150 million. Her bounty used to be 100 million, but after she joined the crew, it went up to where it is now. She focuses mainly on speed for her powerful kicks to deal devastating attacks. I have even heard she has been able to sink entire Navy ships with a single kick. Ryuko Tatsumi, bounty 128 million. She ate the legendary Ryu no Mi model lightning. She has the ability to create lightning even in her human form, which is why the devil fruit is so legendary. Sanji, bounty 166 million. His picture is actually him, not of the other guy. So, yeah, and it is said as only alive. That is what his bounty is said as, not dead or alive, just only alive. Now, yeah, his kicks are even more powerful than Rumi's, and he has been known to create long-range attacks with the sheer force of his kicks. Usopp, bounty 85 million. He has been known to be the most accurate snipers in the world. Or one of the most accurate snipers in the world. There are rumors that he can snipe someone even when he cannot see them. Last but not least, Izuku himself, bounty 529 million. He is said to have the power somewhere between a vice admiral and an admiral, as well as being able to turn into a werewolf-like form that gives him extremely enhanced speed, as well as increased strength and durability, as well as a healing factor. The healing factor also seems to affect him in his human form, at least from what we can infer from what the Marines were able to say via Responder Snail before Izuku and his crew killed them. In other words, Izuku is the main threat. Anyway, those are the only ones that we should need to worry about. The others don't have bounties. Oh, man, that was long. Anyway, hope you guys enjoy the new bounties. Yeah. Now, back with Izuku and his group. Izuku was in his transformed state. Okay. Look, I'm not gonna say this often, but don't kill them. We need to find out what is actually happening, and killing them isn't going to help. We knock them unconscious and nothing more. Captain's orders. They all nod their heads in understanding at Izuku's words. At that moment, an explosion happened on the side of the building. Izuku looked at Bakugo, thinking that he was the one who did it. But when he saw the look of surprise on even Bakugo's face, he realized that someone else had to have done it, which only further confirmed his theory of traitors in galley law itself. Izuku saw 2 people leap off a building and decided to hide himself as he followed them. Unbeknownst to him, Tsuyu did as well. Galley Law also followed him, but they were anything but stealthy. They shouted at the top of their lungs for the 2 to stop. Baku, Kirishima, and Rumi fight a woman on the top of the roof while Izuku follows the 2 on the ground. The woman had a spiked whip that seemed to walk on air. They all realized she was using one of the 6 powers, more specifically Moonwalk, as Izuku had taught all of them about the 6 powers, even though some of them didn't use all or any of them. Though many made use of Shave and Moonwalk. Like Rumi, who used Moonwalk to meet the woman in aerial combat. However, Rumi is much faster than the woman had anticipated. This was now, this, I believe I have it here somewhere. Yes, this was a suggestion from this person. So, here you go. So, Wrath, shout out to you, man. Thank you. Well, because it wasn't until after you gave me this idea that I came up with this transformation. So, Rumi tosses a ball into her mouth and suddenly transforms into this form. Now, I do know this is extremely close to someone in the anime, if not the exact thing. I'm pretty sure it's not exact thing. I'm pretty sure it's fan art. See, the name in the bottom tells me it's fan art. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure the fan art is based off of a different character in One Piece. Not entirely sure. Like I said, I haven't gotten very far in this. Anyway, also, let's pretend she doesn't have the heels on, because who fights in heels? And this is her speed form, the only other form that she has. All it does is boost her speed to extremely high points. Like, it literally puts her speed somewhere between the speed of sound and the speed of light. In other words, it puts her speed on par with Izuku's. Now, Bakugo lets out one large explosion, which distracts her long enough for Rumi to get a knockout blow, knocking her directly into the building, tossing away her whip and pulling off her helmet. The Galley Law members looked on and didn't understand what was going on, and as they thought they were on the same side. Now, let's see who is on the other side of this mask, Bakugo said. As he took off the mask, the unconscious woman revealed to be Iceberg's secretary. That is so unmanly. She got extremely close to him just to kill him, Kirishima said. I think she also wanted info that only he had. I mean, it would explain why they let him live last time, Rumi stated as she turned back into her hybrid form. And now we go back to this picture. The rest of Galley Law that were still on the roof stood in shock at the realization they had been betrayed. Both parties had been betrayed. Izuku's crew had been betrayed by Robin, and they had been betrayed by Khalifa, and who knows who else. Now, back with Izuku, the 2 figures he was following had gotten surrounded. Izuku could tell with his heightened senses that one was Robin. One of them threw a cloth into the air, hiding both of them. One created a door from the wall behind them and slipped in, as did Izuku and Sue before the door became a wall once more. Once Izuku was inside, he decided to stop following them. It was obvious where they were going. Izuku went and explored the place from the shadows, looking for others in masks that were also a part of this group. While that happened, Ryuko was walking through the walls with lightning sparking off of her body. I don't care what anyone says, but these people are either dead or unconscious, because that lightning is continuously shocking them until she's out of range. But I'm going to give these guys the benefit of the doubt. Plus, Izuku said not to kill them, so I'm just going to say they are just unconscious. It was at this time that Ryuko met a man with a large bear mask. So you are the first one to die. It's sad that your captain will have nothing left of you to bury, the man in the mask said, and as he lunged at her using shave. However, what he didn't expect was for her to do the same, and great, now I lost place. Same, and with the power of lightning already at her disposal, she was already fairly fast, even without shave. You shouldn't talk when you barely know your enemy. I'm guessing you didn't realize that everyone on our crew knows at least one of the 6 powers? Our captain made it a point for us to have mastered at least one of them. He does train us to the bone, but in the end he only does it because he wants us to be able to protect ourselves when he is unable to be there. I can at least give him that much. He might be even kinder than my old captain, although he does tend to kill Marines, but I can see he has his reasons for hating them, and oh, I've been ranting, haven't I? Sorry about that, and you're gone. Damn it! She stomped the ground out of frustration and started walking around again in hopes of finding him before Izuku found out about her blunder. It wasn't long before he found one person in a large mask. Izuku, that is. It was a very large skeletal mask. Said person was talking to the man named Polly. At this point, Izuku could hear Sue talking quietly next to him, though he couldn't see her body. Are we just gonna wait, Gero? Izuku knew what was happening. Sue had taken a rumble ball and was now in her stealth form, which allowed her to be completely invisible. And with some training from Izuku, she had learned how to completely hide her presence, making the camouflage even more effective. You've mastered the finger pistol, right? Izuku asked the invisible frog girl. He could barely tell her general direction. Perhaps he had trained her too well. Yes, Gero. Take him out. We will show no mercy to those who think it's a good idea to mess with a member of our crew. But first let's hear what this conversation to its end, Izuku ordered. And understood, Gero. The Sioux responded as they went silent and listened for their time to attack. But back with Robin and Iceberg, the man in the bull mask stood guard outside, slaughtering anyone who would come even remotely close to the door of Iceberg's room. The conversation goes the same until Iceberg pulls a gun on Robin and says, "If you'll sign it in blood." So you want me dead then, Robin said, as more of a statement than a question, while pulling out her own guns and pointing them at Iceberg. That's right, before you destroy the world by finding the ancient weapons. Iceberg says his hands are shaking and covered in blood from the wound on his arm. Well, I'm afraid it's too late for that. Seawolf Izuku has already learned how to understand the poneglyphs as well as what the 3 ancient weapons are and where to find them. Some people think that the original Pluton was destroyed, but the sea wolf thinks otherwise. In fact, he believes he knows exactly where the original Pluton was hidden away after the blank century. Robin explained. As she did, Iceberg started shaking more and more. However, this time, it was not out of pain, but out of fear. The fear that Izuku not only had the power to revive the ancient weapons, but also knew where the original Pluton was. This was a far worse situation than he could have ever imagined. The conversation goes the same from there, until the man with the bear mask and the man with the bull mask then walks inside to see Robin restraining Iceberg with a gun pointed to his head. "We need him alive, Robin." They then proceeded to do the lie detector test that they did in Kin, as they heard that Khalifa had been beaten, and they didn't want to risk anything. They had done it and were gone before Izuku could even get back. They had finished it and left before Izuku could get back, and went straight to Frankie's hideout. Back with Izuku and Sue, after they heard about the situation about Pluton's blueprints, and that is what these people were looking for, Izuku decided enough was enough. "Sue, end this here before he kills him." It didn't take long for the masked man to meet his end, since Sue was about right next to him. To those who think that he should have been able to fight back, think about it this way. I'm portraying Sue as, like, the assassin of the group. So she is the quietest and can turn completely invisible and hide her presence completely. And, well, almost completely. You would tell me that a man should have noticed she was even there when he was very clearly focused on something else and did not have his guard up whatsoever. I don't think so. I don't think he had his guard up whatsoever. I don't think he saw that happening. Anyway, so Izuku takes off the large mask and reveals Kaku to Polly, who was on the floor bleeding. "So I was right. This guy was a traitor then," Izuku said, to no one in particular. "You..." No. That was a bit overdramatic, yeah. That was bad. That was bad, I'm sorry. Said while coughing blood. Polly said while coughing blood. "Well, I wouldn't say I knew. Just had a hunch that turned out to be correct is all," Izuku said flatly. "Oh my gosh, shut up. Stupid..." "Look, I'm sorry about earlier," Polly managed to say without coughing, surprisingly. "Look, it's fine. Pirates are blamed for this stuff all the time. Well, most of the time it's true. But this time it wasn't. So don't worry about it. Hell, if I was in your position, I would have thought the same thing," Izuku said in a calm tone. "Still, though..." Polly tried to speak, but Izuku cut him off, saying, "Look, it's fine. So don't make this a whole thing. Now, if you excuse me, I need to go. Sue, get him outside as well as any other survivors. I have a feeling this place is about to go up in flames. Make sure you get as many people out as possible and get others to help you if necessary." "Understood, Carol." And don't expect a good Sue impression, or, it to stay the same at all. Just don't. I'm not good at impressions at all. So, yeah, expect my voice to change a lot. Sue said before wrapping Polly in her tongue and jumping out a broken window. It's a long script, guys. All of the Sea Wolf pirates are getting people out of the building that was now starting to catch fire, just like Izuku had predicted. They were not going to leave any evidence of their involvement, so they threw it up in flames. When Izuku finally got to Iceberg's room, Iceberg was bleeding out and Robin was nowhere to be found. Izuku was so angry he almost transformed out of sheer rage, but he clutched the edge of a hole that was now in the wall, and with nothing but his human form, he clutched so hard that the rest of the wall broke into pieces under his grip. Izuku kept breathing, remembering all his practice, containing his emotions, letting everything out right now would do him no good. As he always told himself, as well as everyone else on his crew, power is nothing without control of said power. I'm wasting time trying to make sure I regain control. Who knows how far they could have gotten on the sea train by now. I'm glad I had Sanji, Zoro, Kyoka, Itsuka, and Setsuna get on the train just in case we were unable to save her here, Izuku thought as he calmed himself down. We just have to get them at Eni's lobby. Yeah, that has to be where they're going. That's the final destination of the sea train after all. Let's go. He took a deep breath and let it out as he finished his thoughts. Meanwhile, with the rest of the crew and Frankie had just finished explaining Tom's workers and how he used to work there, as well as the trial and the building of the sea train, and May had taken off the large robotic arms off of the Mary. Rob, Lucy, and the only other remaining member of CP9 on the island, and who wasn't captured, took it over. While they tried to fight back, Lucci proved to be more powerful a foe, even for Usopp. Unlike Izuku, who held back a lot during their training with Usopp, Lucci wasn't holding back his speed in the slightest. Lucci didn't want to waste any time, so he just knocked out Usopp and Frankie and left not caring about the rest of the crew, as they were almost completely useless in battle, minus Nami, but she wasn't putting up much of a fight. The explanation that Iceberg gave to Nami in canon is instead given to Sue, Rumi, and Ryuko, while Bakugo and Kirishima try to find anyone who might still be left inside the building. When he explains, he says that CP9 has been given the authority to call in... Oh, hello. Shout out to this guy, he just subscribed. I really hope this data doesn't get corrupted. This video doesn't get corrupted. Ugh, it usually does. Like, whenever I get notifications in a video, it normally gets corrupted, unfortunately. Yeah, let's hope it doesn't. To call in an admiral to eliminate the Sea Wolf pirates. Now you're starting to understand why she did it, even though Izuku is extremely powerful. However, as a recent fight has proven, he is not as powerful as an admiral. The fleet admiral had given them the ability, as he believed they would eventually become a force more powerful than the Navy. The Sea Wolf pirates, that is. He goes on to explain that Izuku used that. On the explanation, she used the word he instead of they, meaning that instead of the whole crew, she was talking about a singular person. He didn't care about the past, he would rather let it die there, but what he did care about was how the Navy acted and how it continues to act to this day. I feel like I wrote that wrong, and I shouldn't have read it out loud. But fuck it, I've already read it. I've already spent an hour recording this or something. So I'm gonna leave it in. Because I don't know how to edit Izuku didn't care about the past, as he would rather let it die there. But what he did care about was how the Navy acted and how it continues to act to this day. And they all understood how Izuku would act upon hearing this. He might not have cared about the past and he wanted it to die there, but what he did care about was the way the Navy acted and how it continues to act. Demonstrated clearly by what they're doing now. And they all knew that feeling that that was demonstrated in Iceberg's explanation. They all felt the same way for the same person, their Captain Izuku. He was a man that would take anyone who needed saving in and protect them no matter the cost. He could forget the sins of the past as long as the sins stayed there. In the Navy's case, the sins continued to be done, so he hated them with a passion. What they did here on Water 7, taking away a member of his crew, that is, would only fuel those flames of hatred and prove to be the entire world government's downfall. Had they been in Robin's place, they would have taken the same offer. Hell, anyone on Izuku's crew would have taken the offer if it meant Izuku was able to leave the island safely. However, they also knew that he would die trying to save them, making their effort useless. There was no way this would end without conflict. They needed to be prepared to fight an admiral. With that being said, Sanji, Zoro, Kyoka, Itsuka, and Setsuna were already on the train and ready to begin infiltration. The train then took off, read that wrong, before Aqua Laguna could start. The rest of the crew meet up again and can see that this Aqua Laguna is going to be the worst of them all. The entire ocean just gone. All you could see was the seafloor. Sanji's group, however, were able to get to Frankie and Usopp, who were not heavily guarded. Or guarded at all, really. I mean, it was pretty easy to get to him. Kokoro offers the use of an old prototype of the sea train. Izuku accepts the offer. They go and find Iceberg working on the train to make sure it works. The Frankie family asks if they can come with Izuku. Izuku accepts, knowing that they will probably just come anyway. A giant wave came towards the train. However, Izuku just transforms and channels his now silent rage and throws a punch that splits the entire wave in half, allowing the train to pass through unharmed. After this, he goes back into the train and sits down like he didn't just split an ocean with nothing but his fist. Sanji contacts the rest of the crew and informs them on what's been happening on the Puffing Tom and how they now have secured Usopp and Frankie. Sorry, forgot his name there for a second. Sanji's group has slaughtered everyone in the last two train cars and are prepared to move on to the next one. Sanji and Zoro fight Wanze and his Ramen Kenpo, as Frankie and Setsuna fight Nero, the newest member of CP9, which also, while that happens, Itsuka, Kyoka, and Usopp, Frankie and Setsuna fight Nero. Did I say that? Oh, fuck. Man, I'm so stupid sometimes. I mean, while that happens, Itsuka, Kyoka, and Usopp all go and speak to Robin. The conversation goes more or less the same. However, they all find different hiding places other than Robin's coat. You know, Robin, you should have realized that Izuku wouldn't let you leave so easily. The moment you joined the crew, you became important to him. More important to him than his own life, even. There is no way in hell he would let you do this without at least trying to save you, Itsuga said after the man left without a clue as to what was happening. Things go more or less the same. They detach the car, but Bluno, the man with the bullhorn hairstyle who ate the door fruit, still ends up taking Robin and Frankie back to Lucci, who is the only other member of CP9 on the train. Izuku got another feeling, so he went back onto the front of the train to find a giant swinging frog from earlier on the tracks. He used his Conqueror's Haki to force the frog off the tracks by scaring him with his sheer presence. The frog jumped onto the train where he talked to Kokoro. The conversation was somehow understood by Izuku. Izuku believes this to be the same reason he could understand the poneglyphs, as the voice he heard sounded the same. CP9, Frankie, and Robin finally make it to Ennie's lobby and make their way to Chief Spondum on the second half of the island. When they got there, they met with the others of CP9. "Where are Khalifa and Kaku?" asked Spondum. "They were defeated by the sea wolves," Lucci said nonchalantly. The others stood in shock for a second. Kaku and Khalifa were some of their strongest. To be defeated by a mere pirate crew was surprising, to say the least. "Don't lie to me. There's no way a measly group of pirates could defeat a member of CP9, Spondum shouted. "The sea wolves aren't measly pirates. Their combative members are all at least as strong as a commodore, if not a rear admiral. Not to mention their captain Izuku has power somewhere between a vice admiral and an admiral. I don't know what his devil fruit is, but it looks like an Inu no Mi model wolf. At least that is what I could gather with the information at hand," Lucci said calmly. "The rest of his crew is powerful too. One of them in particular could generate lightning from her body, even without using her transformation. She was smart with it, too. She used the lightning like a shield. You couldn't get close to her without being electrocuted," Bluno said as he remembered his battle with the draconic woman. Spondum couldn't believe what he was hearing. He started preparing to call in an admiral for when the Sea Wolf pirates showed up on the island. While back on Rocket Man, Izuku had already picked up Sanji's group. Sanji then explained everything that happened after they lost contact. When they had arrived on the island, Izuku was ready to release every ounce of his rage that had been building inside of him. He transformed and smashed through the first two gateways. I'm probably going to leave it on this one. And it was now the beginning of the main island. CP9 heard the commotion from the other side of the island and went out onto the balcony to see Izuku release his unfiltered wrath upon the island. Izuku's eyes were glowing red. That's how you knew he was pissed off. At the same time, a bluish-green lightning formed around him as he let loose an all-out punch that completely destroyed the island. The shockwave of the punch completely destroying the island, leveling it completely, as if nothing had ever been built there and nothing had ever grown on the island. Just dirt. Completely flattened dirt. What was left of CP9 stood in awe, even though they didn't show it on their faces. "Yeah, I'm not fighting that," Jobber said as he started leaving. Izuku started walking through the now completely leveled island. Not a single body or even a piece of a building could be found anywhere on this island anymore. Eyes directly on where CP9 was located. due to their building being on the other side of the island across a large gap, was unaffected, well, not completely destroyed, but hit with a large shockwave that didn't destroy it, but caused some massive damage, but it still stands. Spondum tries to give some of the other members of CP9 the 2 devil fruits he had, but unfortunately they had already left to confront Izuku, thinking if they took him on in mass they could defeat him. Lucci even convinced Jabra to join by calling him too weak to fight anyway. Now Izuku stood surrounded by the 5 remaining members of CP9. "Damn it," Spondum screamed as he pushed the button on the responder cell that made Robin scared out of her mind. It was too late now. She was chained and couldn't do anything. All of her efforts had been for nothing. In the end, the outcome was still the same. Itsuka was right. All 5 rushed him at once. But, as I said before, his devil fruit power gets more powerful the angrier he is. So, this is not much of a problem to defeat the 4 of the 5. If the only one that gave him trouble was Lucci. Lucci was even better than Izuku when it came to using the 6 powers. After all, Lucci had, for the lack of a better word, upgraded versions of the 6 powers. Whereas, however, Lucci's 6 Kings pistol wasn't doing any damage. That wasn't healed seconds later. No matter what vitals he hit, the wounds would heal in seconds. From the moment CP9 took Robin, this battle had been decided. Izuku was one who cared about the lives of his crew. The people he saw as family, or lovers in some cases, meant more to him than anything else in the world, and nothing could piss him off more than doing what CP9 had just done. Well, maybe a few things, but they still center around the members of his crew. In other words, Izuku was at the moment at his absolute strongest, but also at the point where he had the least amount of control. In other words, he could not use his haki or the 6 powers at all. This was his raw power. No enhancements whatsoever. Bakugo and the rest of his crew made their way past the gates to find the island completely leveled. This would be why you don't piss Izuku off. The angrier he gets, the more powerful he becomes, though he does have less control over said power, as well as himself, Katsuki said while staring at the scene before them. At the moment, the fight took to the air, where the 2 speedy Devil Fruit users duked it out. It was surprising that Lucci wasn't dead yet. That wouldn't be the case for long, though. He continued with his futile effort using finger pistol at a distance, which Katsuki and the others noted down. Izuku continued to give fast and hard punches. Not even a minute had passed before the battle was over. Izuku just hit too hard as well as too fast. Faster than Lucci, even, when he used his hybrid form and razor at the same time. Katsuki then looked over at everyone that was left and said, "We need to calm him down. Tsu and Kyoka already went to get Robin. We just need to make sure he doesn't kill anybody until he can get Robin back here and calm him down." Everyone nodded in agreement at his words. They now needed to face their biggest challenge of their lives. They needed to face their own captain in a fight when he wasn't holding back at all, when he was at his absolute strongest. While that was happening, Tsu had grabbed Kyoka and went around the battle and to the other side of the island to get Robin. She had to use Moonwalk to get across the giant gap, but it wasn't a problem for her. She could jump really far, and Moonwalk helped a lot. When they got to the other side, Spondum was about to stab Frankie as they see Frankie burning something to nothing but ash. As soon as Sue saw this, she smacked Spondum with her tongue and then grabbed Frankie and pulling him back. As the sword, Spondum had turned into an elephant with a sharp trunk. Kyoka kept telling Sue what it planned on doing, and Sue began being much more agile than the elephant was easily able to dodge all of its attacks, especially after being given fair warning. And it was at this point that I decided to make an extremely stupid decision that might get some hate. Anyway, back to the story. But I actually absolutely love this idea. But anyway, back to the story. Come on, Kyoka. Come on, Kyoka. You can do more than this. You don't need to be protected. You've been learning to fight too, so why aren't you? Kyoka mentally berated herself for not helping actually fight. Just do it already, she screamed, as sound seemed to disappear and time seemed to stop for a moment. When the sound returned and time started again, the elephant was on its knees with its head down, like it had acknowledged her as its new master. Did you just use Conqueror's Haki, Gero? Sue said as she tied up Spondum, who had already pressed the button to summon the Admiral. I think she did, replied Robin. What's Conqueror's Haki? Frankie said, confused. However, the question was directed towards, Kyoka, didn't answer. She didn't know what to think right now. She just stood there, looking at her hands. Sue snapped her out of it by waving her hand in front of her face, saying, Are you okay, Kyoka, Gero? Kyoka didn't have time to answer before they heard an immense howl which drew them back towards the other side of the island, where they saw their captain fighting for control over himself mentally, but fighting the rest of the crew physically. Everyone that came along with them, the Frankie family and some of the Galileo people, are just standing in the back like, I ain't getting into that. Izuku tried to regain control as Katsuki talked to him while everyone simultaneously attacked him, trying to draw his attention. Rumi, in her speed form, was the only one that could actually match Izuku in speed, so she kept his attention with a game of cat and mouse, or wolf and rabbit if you will, while the others tried to whittle him down. However, his healing ability was in overdrive due to how angry he was. Kyoka, take these cuffs off me and give them to Rumi. She is the only one who has a chance of putting them on him, Robin said as quickly as she could. Kyoka quickly grabbed the keys from Spondum and unlocked her sea prison stone handcuffs. Then picked up the elephant that had turned into a sword, or was it a sword that turned into an elephant? Either way, it was a sword now. She then used Shave and Moonwalk to get to the other side. Katsuki, Zoro, Sanji, you need to distract him. Rumi, I need you to put these cuffs on him. Kyoka shouted, On it. They all replied in unison. Katsuki setting off a large explosion, Izuku, Zoro using his three-sword style Great Dragon Twister, while Sanji used his Diablo Jambe, a Diablo Mutton Shot. But while Rumi, not even being told to, transformed into her full dragon form, which looks like this. And sent a large shock towards Izuku. A really big one. One that just came straight out of her mouth. stunning Izuku for but a moment. However, it was long enough for Rumi to put on the cuffs onto Izuku. As Izuku fell to the ground, unconscious. Well, barely conscious. But he did feel extremely weak. Now, for those of you who don't know, putting Sea Prism Stone on somebody doesn't take them out of their form. It just makes them too weak to actually do anything in it, or even in their human form. If they're a Zone type Devil Fruit user and they're in their human form, they'd still be too weak to do anything. So yeah. So he still stays in this form. However, at the time that he had been stunned, he had slammed Bakugo's face into the ground. But it didn't do as much damage as it would have, because one, Bakugo used his armament hockey on his face, and having it applied only to his face or head instead of his entire body meant it was much more concentrated and therefore much stronger. And he was stopped mid head slam by the giant lightning attack. And plus, even if it wasn't, it would take more than that to kill Bakugo. Plus, it wasn't difficult for him to concentrate. Yeah. He didn't have any deadly injuries, per se. With that, Izuku, having lost all of his energy, had fallen to the floor, barely conscious. Sorry. Sorry about that, everyone, Izuku said in a tired but apologetic tone. Sorry for what? As far as I'm concerned, all you did was show us the level of strength we all need to reach, Rumi said. Yeah, Izuku. Well, you did. I can't become the best if I haven't even seen where my goal lies, Katsuki said. Yeah, Cap, bro. We all plan on becoming the strongest. That's what the agreement we struck when we joined this crew. Kirishima said. Everyone else had a similar response. Guys, we should leave before the Admiral arrives, Robin said as she came back to see Sue Spondum in a small box with 2 devil fruits hidden inside. For those of you wondering, let me go and show you. The 2 devil fruits. This one and this one. Also, what is this? To these people in Australia, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Eventually I'm gonna do an Australian accent, and no offense, but I'm probably gonna butcher it. But yeah, I don't need this photo anymore. Anyway, so yeah. Anyway, back to the story. Do you want to carry me? Izuku said while weakly moving his arms. Rumi, being the fastest, grabbed him and started running to the train with as many people as she could before the Admiral could arrive. If they uncuffed Izuku and everyone was on the puffing tom when all of a sudden the temperature dropped. The train started to speed away, however, it was missing a passenger. That passenger was Izuku, as he now stood in front of Admiral Aokiji on the flattened island. Do you plan on talking about it now that your crew isn't here? Or why you left the Marines, that is. Or never became one to begin with. his breath visible in the air around him. I found the truth. I found out the truth behind the world government, and will not be subject to follow their laws. They enslave the innocent. For what? Because they're different? Because they can't afford to survive and pay taxes at the same time? They murder innocent people just to arrest one man. They don't even kill that man. They just kill anyone who gets in the way. Oh yeah, 'cause that makes so much sense. The world government is stupid and needs to be replaced by a government that actually protects its people, Izuku said with conviction in his eyes. You're just like your father then, Aokiji said. Say that all you want, but I've never met my father, Izuku responded. Just so you know, I was the one who let Robin live back on Ohara. In other words, you can say I'm the reason she's still alive. An old friend convinced me to let her live, so that she could find real friends. I'm glad that she found that in you. Aokiji said. What are you saying? Izuku said in a fighting stance. Look, I'm going to leave you be for now. You're lucky I was the one who answered the call sent out by the responder snail. The other two admirals might have killed you, Aokiji said. What are you going to say to them when they ask if I'm dead? Izuku questioned the man, not letting his guard down, but had left his fighting stance. You were gone when I arrived. It's that simple, Aokiji said flatly. Thanks, but I know this encounter will be different the next time we meet, and I know that you will know that too, Izuku said as he used Moonwalk and shaved to catch up to the sea train, leaving Aokiji behind. The others were looking back at the island after having realized that Izuku was not on the train anymore. I knew we shouldn't have uncuffed him, Kyoka said. Well, you didn't say anything, kiddo. Oh, Sue said, worried about Izuku. The worry for Izuku showing in her voice. Stop worrying about him. He knows what he's doing, Bakugo said, even though he was indeed worried about Izuku, but he wouldn't admit that. And, I mean, he was his brother after all. He had a right to be worried. The Frankie family is overjoyed at their reunion with Frankie, while Galileo is talking about just how powerful the Sea Wolf pirates were, and how they needed to prepare for even stronger pirates in the future. At this point, Izuku walked in from the front of the train. What are you guys looking at? Izuku said as everyone turned to look at him. Wait, you were in the front this whole time? His crew screamed in unison, minus the obvious ones. Yeah, where'd you think I was? Izuku said. On the island, fighting an admiral, Kyoka said embarrassedly, tapping her fingers together. Well, I wasn't, so let's just hope the admiral doesn't follow us, Izuku said. With that said, they continued on their journey back to Water 7. After getting back to Water 7, the crew sailed the Mary out to sea, where it breaks in half. They had already taken everything out of the Mary and were giving her the proper burial, air quotes, of a ship, by letting it die at sea. The next day, all of the wood had arrived, and Frankie began working on the straw hats. Did I actually write straw hats in this script? In the Sea Wolf's new ship. God damn, I'm stupid sometimes. The ship itself, I was probably really tired when I was writing this. I think I was writing this part really late at night. Anyway, the ship itself took a full month. Even with Frankie's speed at building, as well as the help from Galileo, the ship was sized to Izuku's specifications. The ship was everything the Thousand Sunny does. The ship has everything the Thousand Sunny does in canon. The only difference is the size, as well as the figurehead is that of a wolf, not a lion. During this month, it took to build the ship, Izuku had learned the different abilities that Katsuki told him Lucci used during their fight, using the Six Kings pistol. However, possibly the biggest thing he learned how to do was to enter one of the forms that he had previously only been able to enter with the help of a rumble ball. This form is arguably the weakest of his forms, but it had a lot of strength in terms of strategy, this being his Shadow God form. Kyoka came to Izuku while the ship was being built because she wanted to learn how to fight with a sword. After all, now she had one, not just any sword, but a sword with devil fruit abilities, but that will be explained later. She wanted to be more useful in a fight, as she didn't feel like she was just telling them, as everyone else was learning how to use observation haki too, and she was becoming less and less useful. At least in her mind she was. Izuku obviously agreed and started training her immediately. Now the sword Kyoka uses is the sword that ate the elephant fruit. Kyoka renamed this fruit Whispering Echo. Named this sword Whispering Echo. It's fucking stupid when I wrote this. It's fucking so stupid. And when talking to the elephant form, which has its own intelligence, she calls him Echo. While training, Kyoka tends to lose her focus on her observation haki, foregoing it for her concentration on her attacks. Izuku notices this and hits her over the head with his left fist. Ow! What the hell was that for? Kyoka said, clearly angry. You need to pay attention. You can't lose focus on your haki for an attack. You'll end up as a burden in a fight if you do, Izuku said, somewhat disappointed in her. Look, Kyoka, I know you want to learn how to fight, but don't forget to use your strengths in said fight. So the first thing you need to learn is how to focus on swordplay. Then we can work on your focus for your haki at the same time as your swordplay. Now let's continue. By the end of the month, Kyoka, while not being as good as Izuku, will be really good with her new sword. Now, during this month, Izuku went to interrogate Khalifa, after Iceberg asked him to on his behalf, since he was still in recovery. As soon as he got there, he activated his observation haki and used it like a lie detector to tell when her heartbeat raised and therefore was lying. Skipping this conversation, Izuku finds out that she has been forced to work for the government her entire life and trained to kill by her father, who was also trained to kill his entire life, and her father before, and his father, and his father's father, and so on and so on. Needless to say, Izuku felt bad for her. After all, she never had a childhood, never had the chance to be raised the right way. He told her that he would protect her, but she had to join his crew and help others to make up for all the innocent people she had killed. She agreed and is now a part of the Seawolf Pirates. He then goes to check on how Iceberg is doing, to see a woman his age with long blue hair standing over Iceberg. Oh, Izuku, I didn't expect to see you here. Well, since you are here, this is my daughter, Nijire. Go on, ask him what you wanted to ask him, Iceberg said. Oh, this is going to be hard. Just imagine me talking really fast and understandably. Why did you destroy an entire island? How did you destroy an entire island? How powerful are you really? Is it true that your goal is to help people? If so, can I also join you? I really want to help people too. Except it's much faster than what I just said it. Now, Nijire said quicker than Iceberg could understand. Izuku, however, could understand her perfectly. I destroyed an entire island because I lost control of my anger. I strive to make sure that that never happens again. I destroyed it with raw power alone. My power increases with my anger, so if I'm angry, I can easily become as powerful as a Marine Admiral. If my calculations are correct, that is. Yes, my crew's main goal is to help as many people as we can. You can definitely join if you choose to. And that's good. I'm glad you want to help people. Izuku said without even taking a second to comprehend what she just said. Iceberg looked on with surprise that he understood what she said. You actually understood her? Nejire looked at Izuku with heart-shaped pupils. I've never met anyone who could keep up with all my questions. Dad, I can't let this opportunity pass me by. Please, 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 please let me go. Well, Iceberg, now knowing that Izuku is the type of person who would delve headfirst into a battle that could most certainly mean his death, and that he's actually as powerful and could actually be as powerful as a Marine Admiral, knew that Izuku would definitely protect her until the very end, and considering that he admitted that he could be as powerful as a Marine Admiral, knew that Nejire would be safest with him. Because of these simple facts, Iceberg, although reluctantly, let Nejire go with Izuku. Nejire also explains that when she was a child, she accidentally ate a devil fruit called the energy fruit, and it turned her body into energy, a Logia type fruit. She can expand this energy in different ways, including giving herself the ability to fly. Towards the end of the month, Izuku was approached by another woman in a black tank top and black pants that were held up by a red belt with a golden belt buckle. She had shoulder-length black hair, some of which was tied into a bun on the back of her head. And she had apparently heard about what he had done over his entire journey, all the way from the East Blue to Water 7, and wanted to help him in fixing the messed up government that rules this world. She explains that she was a part of the resistance that Monkey D. Dragon, was in charge of, and that going with him would only help her fix the government since his goals were the same. She had apparently already eaten the devil fruit as well. She called it the stockpile fruit, which stockpiles power and has been doing so for the past 200 years, and continues to do so. Izuku is very interested in this devil fruit, but decides not to pry any further. Now, in other words, this means that this version of Nana Shimura, in case you didn't realize this is Nana Shimura, will have the same amount of power as Izuku does, as the stockpile fruit works like one for all. As even when it goes back to fruit form after the person dies, it still has all the power that it accumulated with the previous user and the previous user and the previous user, and so on and so on. So yeah. And it even stockpiles power even when it's just in the fruit form. Just saying. Moving on. During this time, Bakugo had Mei work on something for him. He had Mei work on blades that could absorb his sweat, which was also explosive, and release it along the blade to create a large explosion into a newly opened wound, causing massive amounts of damage, as well as creating long-range slashes made out of explosions. So when the crew finds out that not one, not two, but 3 girls are joining the crew, and that one is a former enemy while another refuses to detach herself from Izuku's left arm, Izuku had to explain the situation, and they all should have known something like this would happen. Some, however, still do not trust her, and with a good reason to. So they decided to keep a close eye on her, Some of the girls, mainly Kyoka, Sue, and Ryuko, are trying to pry Nejire off of Izuku, while Izuku just stands there laughing. Things finally seem to be at peace again. The month of building the ship was almost over. When Vice Admiral Garp docked at Water 7, basically this encounter goes the same as it did in canon. Until Dragon? If I remember correctly, his devil fruit is the Ryu no Mi model storm, right? Izuku said, "That is what people assume it to be, but even though I'm his father, I still cannot confirm whether that is true or not. The only thing we can confirm is that he controls wind, lightning, and anything else connected to the weather." Garp said before leaving his grandson behind. They then had a large party the night before the ship was finished. The conversation between Shanks and Whitebeard goes about the same, except Shanks is more powerful, and well, Whitebeard has the same amount of strength. Let's just say we know who's gonna win that fight if it ever escalates to the point of an all-out battle. They all hear about the new bounty for Izuku now being at 758 million berries. Some argue that it should be higher since he destroyed an entire island with a singular punch, but no one that was there is still alive to tell them that it was only a singular punch. While Frankie got his own bounty being at 25 million berries, this is mostly for escaping Marine custody, nothing else. The same scene happens with Frankie being chased around in just a shirt. The arms are already attached to the sides of the new ship, and Frankie ends up joining the ship. Instead of being one docking system, there are actually 3 docking systems. One in the front of the ship, another in the back of the ship, and the final one is in the middle of the ship, where it is on 9000 Sunny. Now, if anyone has any ideas as to what should go in these 3 docking systems, Discord. Go into the Discord, please. If you have ideas for things I should add into what ifs, as I said at the beginning of this video, Discord. Now, there is a lot of room on the ship, so everyone has their own room. Though the girls, or more specifically Izuku's lovers, not necessarily, the girls that have actually slept with him before, including Robin, who has now, during this whole month, has slept with Izuku because of this whole exchange of what he was willing to go through for her and her alone. And, yeah. So basically everyone except for the new recruits are fucking sleeping with him. And, yeah. And, Kirishima and Bakugo tend to sleep in the same room, though no one questions it, and I don't think anyone wants to. Now, I'm not gonna, describe anything from that, because I wouldn't do it justice. I don't think I'd do it justice. I really don't think I would. So it's happening, and you guys get to think of whatever you want to think of about it. But I'm not explaining it because I don't think I would do it justice. Unfortunately, I don't think I would. And it's sad because I really like that ship, but, it's whatever. Anyway, he has a much bigger room and therefore much bigger furniture, and therefore much more people can sleep with him at once if they wanted to, which they do. So anyway, while this happened though, Ace had already caught up to Blackbeard. However, even though Ace is much stronger in this, because he's not used to being attacked and had little control over his armament hockey. Specifically, he was unable to defeat Teach, otherwise known as Blackbeard, in a fight. The fight is much closer though, with Teach being barely conscious after it was all over. Now, back with Izuku. Just as they were leaving, Garp came back. Under direct orders from... Okay, good, I'm still recording. Under direct orders from Fleet Admiral Sengoku to take in the Seawolf pirates. Just like in Canny, Frankie tells them to furl the sails. Only May, who helped work on the ship and knows everything that it can do, knows what is going on. Even Izuku doesn't know what is going to happen, but he does know it's going to be awesome. Okay, the sails are furled, but we can't take the ship into the open ocean until we give it a name. Frankie said some members of his crew, mainly the ones blocking all of the cannonballs, had something to say about how naming it right now was not a good idea. However, Izuku had a name in mind for what he wanted from the moment he saw the ship. Ragnarok, Izuku said with a smirk while looking at the flag waving on top of the mast. Why Ragnarok? Frankie said. Izuku just looked at him and said, isn't it obvious? This is the ship that will bring about the end of an era and usher in an entirely new one. Ragnarok, which is said to be the end of the world and the start of a new one. And that is what I plan to do. End the world government and create a new government that actually cares about its people. The others all thought about it, and all came to the same conclusion. It did fit their end goal fairly well. Izuku then made his way to the back of the ship and waved to his grandfather, saying, see you next time, Gramps, but it's about time we headed out. Izuku shouted towards the Navy ship, and more specifically to his grandfather. Garp got angry at this and brought out a comedically large cannonball and chain. I mean, it was bigger than the boat they were on. And that's canon for anyone who doesn't remember that. However, just as he threw it, Frankie activated his coup de burst, sending the newly named Ragnarok, along with everyone on it, flying after their successful getaway. The crew parties until the sun comes up. I should mention it was noon when they started partying. Anyway, that's all. Hope you enjoyed. This is Blazing What Ifs, blazing away.